All right, so here's the long anticipated video that I said I was gonna make you, and that got ruined yesterday. Hopefully this one turns out a little better. I'm still trying to figure out the mic stuff, so apologies if the quality is not super good. But basically we'll go over the things we kind of talked about in the assessment that we did. So the first one we're gonna kind of address is your ankle flexibility issues. And again, I think it's just mostly like a calf restriction, which is much easier to work on than like a ligament or a tendon issue. So the things we're gonna have you do, just like a little standard kind of calf stretch. I like to use a plate. So basically you're gonna step on top of the plate to get that nice stretch in the belly of the calf. And you can use the rig, wall, like really anything that kind of provides you with like a supporting structure where you can stretch out the calf. You just want to feel that stretch kind of running through the belly of the calf and down the muscle itself. After holding for about 2 minutes until some of that tension starts to dissipate, we're gonna do a little kind of gas pedaling motion with the foot. So if this is my stretched foot, I'm gonna kind of push down into the plate. I'm just gonna work up to about like 30 to 50% on the intensity. You don't need to go crazy hard. If you're feeling pretty sore, then you don't necessarily need to do the contractions because the tissue is already kind of worked. You don't necessarily want to work it anymore. So after holding for about 30 seconds, you're gonna slowly start to ramp down until the tension in the calf is completely gone. And we're gonna work the front side. So I'm gonna try to pull my toes up towards my shin, and it's this action. So I'm trying to basically pull up towards my shin while not moving my body. So I'm pulling my toes, trying to get that front side shin muscle to work as hard as possible. And you should feel like a little bit of stretch in the back as well, just because you're basically pulling the front side up as the back side is lengthening out. So I'm gonna hold that for about 30 seconds, slowly relax until all that tension dissipates. And then you're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Again, get into that stretch, 2-minute hold, contraction, push down, relax, and then pull the front side. Try to get the front side to activate, stretch out the back side a little more. So you can do that pretty often. Again, if you're feeling pretty sore from doing it, you don't necessarily need to keep on trying to do those end range contractions. You can just do the stretching and not the contracting stuff. So after doing that, just to refine some of that range of motion, we're gonna do some of those like zoned ankle cars. So instead of doing like a full circle, we're just gonna work on working this front side muscle and creating what's called more dorsiflexion. So we're gonna get in our little kind of headlock set up for our knee. I'm gonna pull my toes up towards my shin. I'm gonna slowly press in, pull back up, slowly press out, pull back up, slowly press in. So we're never gonna cross that halfway point with our foot. We're gonna kind of keep it in that one zone just to work that front side as much as possible. So just kind of go till you get a good amount of fatigue in the front side of the shin, so this part of your leg. You can go slower, so if I kind of really slow down the reps and I try to like tease out all those ranges of motion, I'm gonna end up making that muscle work harder. You can also keep a little bit of a faster pace just to get some more work, kind of working in and out of those positions. Make sure you do that on both sides as well. So I'll just start with that stuff for now on the ankles. If you're starting to get some good progress there, we can talk about adding in some eccentrics, some other stuff to really strengthen the front side and to continue to lengthen out the back side. But I think just stretching and doing those light contractions and not contracting on the days where you're sore, just kind of working those for a while and seeing where that gets you is a good place to start. The other thing we talked about is your scapular stability. So kind of working on building up your scapular stabilizers. So for now, just doing those scap cars is gonna be a really good starting place. So for the scap car, we kind of talked about basically zoning out that painful section. So if you think of the scap car as a big square, it seems that you get some pain, like this kind of lower kind of corner of that scap car. So this kind of position here. So what we're going to basically have you do for now is cut out that section in both directions. So if this is me going in that one direction, I'm cutting out that little corner. If I'm going the opposite direction, same thing, just sectioning out that corner for now. And then as you feel more comfortable and some of that inflammation or some of that pain starts to die down, we can start to go farther into that corner until we basically get like a pain-free range of motion. So in practice, and it's going to be kind of hard to see because I'm wearing a baggy sweatshirt because it's a whopping 30 degrees today, but you're going to go into retraction, slide down, and again cut out that corner, and then continue on with your scap car. And you can push the range of motion in all of the directions so long as it feels okay. Just again, staying out of that pain-free range of motion. And you might find that as you do a couple, you get some of that pain to kind of dissipate. So if you do find that, then that's great. Keep working on the scap cars. And again, just stay out of that pain spot for now. And then as it gets kind of stronger and just more able to kind of handle some of that stress, we can talk about adding some other things into the mix to really help strengthen that area. Another thing you can do, so long as it's pain-free, is a scapular row. So you can take a dumbbell you kind of set up on any kind of box or elevated surface, but you basically just want something to kind of support your body. And you're going to kind of let your arm dangle here. You're going to work on retracting up and then slowly pushing back down. Okay, pulling back, slowly pushing back down. And again, just staying out of that pain-free range of motion. And eventually when you get good at those, we can start doing some loaded scap cars. So adding some weight and doing the same thing. And again, so long as it's pain-free. Another thing you can do to work the scapular movement is just some basic elevation and depression. So working on shrugging up and then slowly coming back down, okay? The goal here is not necessarily to get the shoulder as high as possible, it's to get the scapula to generate as much movement as possible. So don't just jerk your shoulder up and down, try to have really good control on the way up and on the way down, so long as it feels okay. If it's painful or seems irritating, don't do it. So the other thing we also found is your left quad is a little tighter than your right, and probably your right side too, so you could do with stretching that side as well. So the thing we're going to have you do for that is kind of like a modified couch stretch. So in that regular couch stretch, you kind of get the top of the foot up onto the rig, but we don't necessarily want you to do that just because it's going to stretch most of your hip flexor, like all those muscles that kind of cross the hip joint, and we want to stretch more down towards the knee. So we're going to do kind of like a modified couch stretch for that. So we're going to get your knee on top of the pad, and you can use any wall, any surface that you can really get your foot into. The rig will work, the wall, box, really whatever. And then we're going to basically get your foot, kind of get the ball of the foot into the rig. And sit nice and upright, kind of bring that hip forward just a little bit until you feel like a good stretch, kind of running more towards like the knee as opposed to super pinpoint at your hip. If you're feeling a lot of tension, like specifically crossing that hip joint, then you need to move your knee forward a little bit and get your knee farther away from whatever you're putting your foot on, because that means that foot is just too high up and it's going to be stretching the hip flexor specifically. So again, you want to feel like it's more running down towards the knee. And for this one, we're just going to kind of sit here for about 2 minutes until some of that tension starts to dissipate. You can do some of those end range contractions. So for this one, it's going to be me trying to kick. So if I were to take my foot away from the wall, it's me kicking down from the knee. It's not me pushing my hip away, because that's going to where we left off. Someone just crashed into a pole outside. So we're going to try to pick up where we left off. Yeah, so quad stretching. Get the foot onto the wall, and then again, we're trying to feel that stretch more towards the knee as opposed to really crossing the hip. Just gonna hang out here until some of that tension starts to really dissipate, and then at the 2-minute mark, we're gonna do that little contraction where we're trying to kick from the knee, just so we get some of that quad muscle to activate. So you're gonna kick, should feel like a little bit of tension on the front side of the leg. Hold that for about 30 seconds, and then go ahead and relax. If you start to get pretty comfortable with that, we can talk about doing some of the regressive contraction, which would be pulling the heel up, but I don't necessarily think you need to do that right now. So 2-minute stretch, kick the foot into the wall for about 30 seconds, slowly relax, do the same thing on the other side. The last thing you can do for your quads, you can plop down on the ground, and for you, I think we found that your left kneecap is a little tight, specifically trying to move it in that downward motion. So what you can do, just take your thumbs, kind of push your kneecap down. It's going to feel a little strange since you haven't done a whole lot, but basically just pushing down, holding for about a minute, maybe 90 seconds, if you do have the time. And if you also find that your kneecap is really tight in one direction, so if you try to push it out away from the midline of your body and just doesn't want to go that way, it could be worth just adding a little bit of pressure that way and kind of pushing down and also away from the midline of the body. So kind of just working it in the direction that doesn't move super well. You can also do it going back in, so pushing down, going in towards the midline of the body. But the main thing is just getting that downward pressure. Holding that for a little bit, and that should be good for your quad stuff. So in terms of order of priority, ankles for sure are number one, because those things are pretty tight. So do that on a pretty regular basis, and once you feel like you're kind of progressing on that, we can talk about adding some other things for it. Scapular stuff, just doing some basic strengthening, again, zoning out that irritated part. And if you have a little bit extra time and you want to really make sure your quads are staying nice and loose, just doing that kind of like modified couch stretch, stretching that stuff out, and then stretching the kneecap at home, or just kneecap in general. You can do it at home. Let me know if you have any questions.